and I would again ask on the one thing that you mentioned, you would say 2 or 3 copywriting tips on that part.
Yeah, so the tips were what I actually mentioned, which is one, do that exercise that I mentioned, which is try to emulate your favorite writers and things like that. Other tips from a copywriting point of view, I think I think especially in India there is this is okay, simplicity really helps when you're in copywriting. I think especially in India, there is this thing that you have, the fancier words you use, the better. I don't know where this has come in or why this has come in, but really nobody is getting any points because you have used a 15 to 20 letter word somewhere. My favorite writers are those who use simple, understandable language. So don't so if you have a limited vocabulary, that's okay, it's completely fine. It's, remember, writing and all that at the end of the day is a tool to get thoughts across. It's much more important to be crisp, it's much more important to be effective in communication rather than be flowery or to use the most fancy word or something like that. So that's also something that I do want to mention. Unless you are going for a certain kind of craft, unless you are you want to be poetic, unless you want to write a book completely in that sort of Woodhouseian style, then sure, then go for that, then build your own style, etc., etc. But otherwise, simplicity really really helps. Apart from that, from a writing perspective, see, here, okay, so here's, I know this is very boring advice and nobody will want to hear it, but the best way to become a better writer is by writing. And you don't need your writing to go out in the universe anywhere. If you're many people listening to this, for instance, one of the things that I hear the most is, say, I want to be a writer, but I am scared to put stuff outside, put stuff out in the world. It's completely fine. You don't need to put stuff out in the world. You don't need to submit a 500-word blog post every single day. You don't need to do that. Write for yourself. If you want to be a writer, commit to writing 500 words every day. It could just be a Word doc that you have on your computer, or a Google sheet, a Google document that you are sharing with your very trusted friend or something like that. And only once you feel confident of putting something out into the universe, go ahead and do that. It is completely fine. But you will not get better unless you write. Now, you may ask, if I'm just writing like an idiot for 500 words every day and nobody else is seeing it, how will I become a better writer? You will know when you become a better writer, because you yourself will start going back to some of the things that you wrote and say, hey, that was a very nice line that I wrote, or this is a very nice way of thinking, of expressing this. You will remember also, writing is not just about what you write, it's also about what you write. There are some writers who are amazing not because of the way they use the language, but the topics that they write about. Some of my favorite writers, for instance, Scott Galloway, um, Charlie Warzel. I mean, I can just think of so many. If you ask me what their style is, I actually have no idea. But what sticks with me is their thoughts, the topics that they choose to write about, and their point of view. You might be somebody who has a great point of view, but has limited vocabulary. That is a great place to be. It is completely fine. You do not need great language or great vocabulary in order to get your great thoughts across. So, for example, somebody listening to this over here might have if you have like apps on your phone and you're like, oh, this is a shitty UX, or they could have done this better, or whatever it is. Great, you have original thought really matters more than the ability to express that in very great language, right? Start writing about this, start writing product reviews, start writing things like this. Even if it is like, if you want to improve your this thing, if nothing else, go to Zomato and review all the restaurants that you've written. You will start developing your own style. But again, no matter which route you take, right, that is the only way to become a better writer, because then you yourself will see, after doing this for 10, 15 iterations, you yourself will see, okay, what appeals to you more? Are you do you like writing in a certain way? Do you like writing about certain topics? Do you you will then realize that, hey, I am writing about this thing that nobody else is writing about. Then do I put that out into you? Do I put that out into the universe? You might realize after writing for 50 days that 10 of your topics have been around one particular, say, industry. Now you can actually go to somebody working in that industry and say, hey, listen, I've actually written these 10 posts that talk about your particular industry. Do you think I can become a copywriter for you? So you never know what this will lead to, right? I'm not saying that if you write for 500 words every day, you're suddenly going to magically become the best copywriter in India or the world or something like that. But it leads to something, right? You're becoming a better writer, you're better informed, you have some body of work to show to somebody, so on and so forth. Take anybody, take any creator, like you take the best creators in India today, like no matter what you think of them, be it like the Tanmay Butts or Ankur Warikus or whoever it is, right? Whoever you consider a good creator. If those two examples, I know many people don't consider them quality creators or anything like that, but any creator you take, India, globally, everybody has started off at zero, right? Everybody's hustle got their way to the. Yes, of course, there are some people who got a leg up because of their fame or because of their money or connections or whatever it is. Ignore those. There are lots of people who had to struggle very hard to get to a certain point, and from there things grew. People take a lot of these creators that are famous, right? Almost all of them, they have struggled to get to a certain inflection point, and then from there things grow, right? And once you have a million fans, getting to 2 million is very easy, but going from 0 to 1,000 is super difficult. And uh, actually, I can actually say this is true for a lot of creators. Ankur Warikoo actually spoke about this in one of the conferences that he was there for. Again, you may have your own opinion about Ankur Warikoo, and please have your opinion on that, but what you have to respect is his discipline as a creator. He was creating every day, and it took him a long time to go from 0 to 100,000, and after 100,000 it kind of exploded. I have like followed the comedy scene in India for a while, and I've seen AIB when they were at zero level. There was a point of time when Tanmay and me had the same number of followers on Twitter back in the day. And it's just about consistency, talent. It's just about continuing to hustle and do it, and then once you reach a certain level, then you build on that, so on and so forth. So again, uh, just consistency and always putting things out there and always learning. I think this is true for anything. So your question specifically was for copywriting, but whatever I said right now, you can apply to anything. So if you have bought a if anyone out there has bought a DSLR and they want to become a better photographer, the only way to improve is by actually taking photos. I'm sorry that you cannot like take an online course or something and suddenly hack your way to something. There is no hack for any of these things. There is none of these what are the 3 tips I should do to suddenly become an overnight success? There is nothing like that. If these tricks existed, then all of us would be great copywriters, great photographers, everything, right? The only way to get better at any creative activity is to actually do it. And I'm not saying I'm an expert at any of this, right? There are lots of things that I am still doing. I don't consider myself a great writer or anything like that. I still try to write. I still try to do whatever it is I can to get better at what I do. But this is just wisdom that is tried and tested. Like whenever I have Sarthak, one of the interesting things, whenever I've seen interviews of people who I consider like my idols, right, be it from the marketing field, be it from music, or be it from any other space, nobody has a formula to success or anything like that. It's just
Correct.
consider, you take like even for like even footballers, even musicians. Like I'm a big fan of rock music, for instance. Nobody's really like cracked things on the first attempt or something like that, right? Everybody's just hustled to, and kept learning, kept trying. Sometimes like idiots, they've kept trying, but they finally got there, right? So I think it's just a matter of consistency. It's just a matter of and constantly learning. So yeah.
I have realized that like couple of things that I lacked as a person or I had weaknesses. Even when I practiced them, I became a better person, and
Yeah.
now I am doing that much better now.
Yeah.
So as in, there is no other way around it. You have to practice. You have to do it more often, and then obviously will improve. Like
Yeah.
that consistency is
That's
key.
it.
Yeah, and so moving forward, I wanted to deep dive on your other part of it. Like you are working as a freelancer, you are working on the strategy side of it. So wanted to understand how does that strategy come into the action, and then we can move forward from there.
Well, strategy, I tried to explain a little bit before, but so I know I've spoken a lot already, so let me try to keep that bit at least a little short. I think strategy, right, is just when you break it down, is just let me put it this way. To solve any problem, there might be 100 possible solutions. Strategy really is about picking one or picking two ways of doing things. That's really it. That's really, really it. If I want to become a really successful YouTuber, for instance, right, there are 100 ways in which I could possibly do it, right? I'm not saying that any one of them is a, sure shot to success, but there are 100 possible ways of doing it. Now I have to choose one or two of them basis a few constraints, right? What are the constraints? One might be that I have only 2 hours a week in order to do it. I have limited amount of, but okay, I have only 2 hours a week to do it, but because I have a day job, it is paying me enough money where I can invest some part of that into this, right? And point number three could be that I am very interested in, say, rock music, which I have observed that nobody else is doing content around. For example, I'm just using these as examples. Right now, I have understood constraints and I have understood my objective. This is all you need in order to construct a strategy, right? So, good strategy is really about, so basically, then the answer becomes, all right, great, create a YouTube channel where you are able to talk about rock music in this certain way. And since you have money, there's a certain bit of production value that you can do, like you can hire some external musicians or you can shoot in a particular location, so on and so forth, right? So its strategy is really about figuring out what your objective is, or figuring out rather what to do basis your objective and the resources that you have available at your disposal. This is not corporate jargon or anything like that. It is something that anyone can apply to their lives, right? What is your strategy for life? The answer is exactly that. Figure out what your goals are in 10 years time. Figure out what your constraints are. Your constraints might be the fact that you have a job that you cannot leave, or you don't have a certain kind of education, or you have X amount of financial commitment, or you have this. So figure out what all those constraints are, and then figure out the one route that, kind of like checks off all the boxes. It could be something as simple as this. You want to work in marketing, but you are unable to go above a certain level because you don't have the right qualifications for it. Then the answer over there, the strategy is quite simple, right? You need an MBA, right? It could be something as simple as that, or it could be something that's even more complex. And when you convert exactly what I said into a marketing context, that is it. That is exactly what strategy is. Every brand has certain objectives. They want to be known for this, or they want to sell more of this, or they want to do more of that, whatever the case may be. These are the 5 6 restrictions or constraints or even assets that we have here. Okay, then what are the ways to go about, doing it? Everything else that you see after that is just a manifestation of that strategy: where to allocate money, what kind of resources to get, so on and so forth. In a nutshell, Sarthak, that's really what strategy is, and that's something that me and my wife, we try to do for some of our clients. By, we ask them, okay, what is it that you want to do? What are the assets that you have? What are the constraints you have? Constraints could also be, we need to launch in the next month, so we don't have enough time, so on and so forth. And then we say, okay, given that, then we recommend that you do 1 2 3 things. That's it. So strategy honestly is just direction setting. That is all that it is. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's really it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have that proper strategy at that right of my point of time, considering your constraints, considering all the resources at your disposal,
Yeah.
and what is your objective is a very important job. And I think it can be applied not just to your product, not just to your company, but all the things as you mentioned for
Yeah.
your life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense, and it's uh, you can do 100 things to reach at that position. Like what would be the one optimized approach or two optimized approach
Yeah.
to plan A and plan B. That plan A, plan B is strategy,
Yeah.
basically. Taking a slight a detour on that part and mentioning that anybody who is someone who wants to become a software developer, one of the strategy could be to join the Newton School course, because they are launching a full stack development course right now every month, and it's a zero fee upfront course so that you don't have to pay anything before getting a job. And with the job part, they help you get placed at startups and MNCs. So this is a very interesting course. If you want to become a full stack developer, you can check out this course. I will put the link in the description box below. and get to know that, learn more about it, understand what are the nuances of it. And moving forward, Deepak, since you have been doing strategy and a lot of different things, and that too as a freelancer, wanted to understand what could one person do to become a good freelancer, or how does it feel to become a freelancer? When should one decide that right now that is the time I want to move toward from a day job towards the freelancing thing? Like
Yeah.
that's a very hard call, and like when to decide that, how to decide that, like I'm stuck on
Yeah.
that.
Again, the problem with many of these questions is tough to give one answer that works for everyone, right? Because my answer would be very different for somebody who is just out of college versus somebody who is, say, has 10, 15 years of experience and possibly has a little bit of financial cushion to sort of experiment with. But to keep things short, I would say that if there was just one thing that you had to decide, I would say, um, do you have enough work to put to cover your basic expenses when you start freelancing, right? That's all that you should think about. I know that sounds very simple, but it's actually, if you break down the components of that, it's actually quite complex. Like, do you have enough work to cover your basic expenses? I'm not even talking about that luxury trip to the Maldives just yet. That can happen in year two. Um, Calculate your basic expenses: rent, food, EMIs, whatever commitments you have. And that might come to 50,000 for some people, that might come to 20,000 for some people, that might come to 1 lakh for some people. Your circumstance might vary a lot. If you are lucky enough to stay with your parents or somebody else, where you don't have basic expenses to worry about at all, then great, right? We all have to play the cards that are dealt to us. So if your basic expenses are zero, then great, you're in a great position, right? But suppose, say, it's 50,000 or something like that. So do you have enough work? Can you get yourself enough work to make 50,000 at least a month when you start freelancing? Now, break that down even further. That 50,000 rupees doesn't necessarily need to come only from work that you enjoy. In fact, it might so happen that when you start freelancing, see, I always think that there are two kinds of things that you do when you're freelancing. And again, by the way, I'm generalizing here across verticals. I'm not being specific to marketing, product, or anything like that, right? I'm assuming your listeners come from from various backgrounds. A lot of people want to get into freelancing, or they look at freelancing as an option to run away from a bad job. I think that's a very, very bad idea. In fact, never leave a bad job or never take up a new job because you're running away from a bad job, because there is no guarantee that the new job is going to be any different,
Right.
right? And very, very it happens very, very often. So there needs to be something genuine that it's genuinely exciting, that pulls you. Basically, the pull should be greater than the push, right? If I were to sum it up that way. I think freelancing also works that way. So don't think that you're going to get into freelance to escape the tyranny of 9 to 5, right? Because if you actually think about it, if you actually, I know we all like to trash talk office work and all that, but if you actually think about it, a salary job is a great deal. It's an amazing, amazing deal. You're getting a reasonable amount of financial security. They're paying you a fixed amount every month, regardless of the amount of work that's coming in. You are getting your insurance covered. You have a great bunch of teammates. You have somebody who is taking care of your career growth. You have somebody who's taking care of accounts. You have somebody who's taking care of taxes and all that, and making sure that I know we crib about amount that finally comes into the hand and all that, but the fact of the matter is somebody's taking care of, or a lot of decisions, so that you can just focus on work itself, right? It's actually, salary jobs are actually a great deal if you look at it from that perspective, because each of these things that I mentioned, you're going to have to take care of on your own. When you get into freelancing, you're going to have to get your own clients. You have to take care of your own taxes and all that. You have to take care of your own career path and all that. If you're working out of your home, and if you're sharing a home with 10 others, you're going to have to figure out a place to go and work. You're going to have to figure out your own insurance and all these other sort of things as well. So freelancing might seem very rosy from the outside, but it's actually a lot of work because you have to do all these other things as well. You'll have to take care of invoicing, you'll have to take care of all of these things. And many people, especially from the creative side of things, I hate to say this, but they're very good at what they do creatively, but they may not be very good at all the other aspects like invoicing, business, and all these kind of things. So all these things also need to be taken care of. So when I say, can you get enough work for yourself to cover your basic expenses? Typically, work can be split up into things that you are good at and can monetize easily, right? Even though you may or may not enjoy it. And it could be stuff that you want to do. Let me put that, let me paint that perspective for you. You might have a skill that you are reasonably good at, but you don't really enjoy doing. Like, so for example, if I can give my own example, I know I was decent at doing social media, but I hated doing it for a number of reasons which I won't get into. But does that mean that if I have 0 clients, I will definitely sell my soul and I will tell, yes, I will do social media for you. Please pay me money because I need a roof over my head and food on my plate, right? So everybody has a skill, especially those who have a little bit of experience will have a skill that they can easily, immediately monetize, right? But at the same time, when somebody's getting into freelance, it's also likely that they want to work towards something else. They want to work towards different kind of work. They want to work in different industries. They want to do something else. I mean, that's the idea of getting into freelance, right? Because you take a call in terms of the type of clients that you want to work with, the work that you want to do. But this ideal work is not going to come immediately. It's going to be very difficult. If you get it immediately, then great, nothing like it, right? If you are able to get your dream projects at the beginning of your freelance career, nothing like it. I want to speak to you. Please stop listening to this right now because I have no further advice to give you. But the fact of the matter is, many people, when they're starting off, will have to do a balance between these two. So suppose you need 50,000 every month, right? Your basic expenses. My advice would be, forget about quality of work, make sure that 50,000 is covered, right? So monetize the skills that you have right away, because first and foremost is your basic living expenses. Don't romanticize freelance more than it needs to be. At the end of the day, it is work for which you need to get income, right? So make sure your expenses are covered. Now, after you've covered this 50,000, then experiment. If you have 2 to 3 hours left every day, then try to experiment with that. Do some amount of free work, try something else, reach out to other people, so on and so forth. And slowly, you will see this balance shifting. It'll eventually become 25, and then hopefully it'll reach a point where you don't need to do any of the work that you don't enjoy. So then it'll become 0, 50. And then from there, of course, the 50 goes on and becomes something else. So one line for people who are considering freelance is simply this: get into freelance when you can be sure that you are going to get your basic expenses covered. And that again will mean that you have to do a lot of groundwork before this. You'll need to reach out to clients, you'll need to tell them that you're going to be doing something like this. So actually, if you unpack that simple line that I said, there's actually a lot that goes behind it. And again, I think a caveat that I should mention is this: don't romanticize freelance. I know it seems hunky-dory from the outside when somebody says, oh, you get to control your work hours, your timings, and all that. That is there. That's absolutely there. And I won't deny that, I don't enjoy those things. But also keep in mind that you need to have the appetite for doing all the other things also. You'll have to spend a fair amount of time doing business development and invoicing. You'll need a bit of, so I would also say, have a bit of a financial cushion. If you're freelancing, especially if you're young, have like a 3-4 months worth of expenses thing covered and in your bank account. Give yourself a period of about 4 to 5 months also. It's unlikely that the first month and the second month is going to make you that much amount of money anyway. So have a few months of financial cushion before you do something like this. And if you decide to get into, I will actually say it's a great time to consider doing freelance, because for anything in the intersection of marketing, technology, software, UX, design, all of these spaces, I think it's a great time to consider going freelance. I think there's a lot of work, there's a lot of opportunity. If you hustle and if you are willing to learn, if you're willing to, accept the fact that some mistakes and heartbreaks are going to happen along the way, I think it's a terrific time to consider being a freelancer right now, especially from India, be it in clients in India or clients globally. I think it's a really, really good time to, consider building a small business of your own.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have very simply put what could be the freelancing looks like, how you have to manage those basic expenses, and like how you can plan about it.
Yeah.
And then I definitely agree that this is the best time out there. If you have the time at your plate, may it be weekends, may it be anything. That's like, I am doing this YouTube as a out of my free time.
Yeah.
Then people can bring out some time and do that extra skill set, extra work, and eventually move towards the freelance part of it, and become freelancer as in there. And I know a lot of folks in this industry right now doing the freelancing part, because what one thing that COVID has taught us, that you should be prepared for anything else.
Yeah.
There should be extra source of income. There should be extra awareness about it. So be on that side of it. And also, I think very importantly that you mentioned about how freelancing does not need to be romanticized and like looked
Yeah.
into like all the I think great parts of it. You have to look from the other lens as well. What are the
Yeah.
things that you have to manage, and what are the caveats that it's going to come up with. But yeah, very well put, Deepak. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Cool. I think with this we come to the end of this podcast, and I think I was able to get a lot of information. I think I don't have enough words to say. Like,
Thank you. I hope some of it was useful. I know I rambled a lot. I hope there was something useful in here.
no, definitely, that was absolutely amazing, and I got to know a lot of different things. I was never looking at from that perspective, different lens. I got so many perspective today, how to think about it, what could be the right way, and how I can go about it. So yeah, definitely, I'm if I am a better person today, the audience who is listening in is going to be better. And I'm glad that you were able to come up with all these stories and all those things and examples, and you explained them so beautifully, so anybody would be able to
Thanks, man. Thanks, Sarthak.
yeah, understand it very well. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
So much for that. And a person who are listening in audience, I will put his LinkedIn link in the description box below. He's a very fun person to connect with. You can interact with him more. You can reach out to him. And for other details and questions, you can reach out to me on the comment section below. I will be there. And till then, you can take care. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.
See you guys. Bye.